I'm Paul Sage. I'm the creative director for Elder Scrolls Online, and it's being developed by ZeniMax Online Studios.
Thank you. So, since the last time we saw the game in fall last year, many things have changed. Can you list up the major changes?
Major changes, I think since we saw it in fall last year, we've introduced the crafting system. You now have what we call free swinging combat, which means you can swing your sword at any time, which is a lot of fun. We've changed our progression quite a bit, opening it up, making sure that we feel like there's a lot of choice now, a lot of good options, and opening up what we call the skill lines that you saw today. And also we talked about I think crafting today, and probably one of the bigger things that we talked about today was first person with hands. So yeah, a lot of changes there, but hopefully all for the good.
And the first impression of mine was it was a bit darker, less comic-like, the look of the game. Is the impression correct, or?
We did actually look at our character model, so some of the models that you may have seen would tend towards a little bit more realistic proportions now. Mm-hmm. As the game goes through development, you go through a lot of different refinements, and so I think the art team has done a great job of refining the characters down to being perhaps a little bit more realistic in proportion at this point.
And the characters and the textures especially, they looked more crisp in this version. Mm. So I don't want to say that the characters and textures look blurry in Lost Fall, but there was a difference. Mm. At least I thought so. Did you do something about the shaders or the texture size?
It's so hard to remember from October to this version, but again, lots of graphical refinements happen over that time. So we'll probably have had changes in the graphics engines, or changes in the lighting, mm-hmm. That have probably really helped things pop a lot more.
Mm-hmm. The first time for me seeing Hammerfall in 3D, it was a real difference from the screenshots you shown on E3 last year. So was this a strict or direct result from the users or players' feedback out there?
Well, we definitely, of course, take feedback very seriously, and we'll make changes based off that feedback. But actually, I think the Hammerfell region that you saw is pretty similar to the architecture that we had back then. Again, the engines, had lighting changes and those things on it, but the architecture itself is really similar to what we've shown previously. I think the architecture looks fantastic. It's one of my favorite. The Redguard architecture is one of my favorites in the game. Mm-hmm. There's something about the desert, and when this sun goes down and it's night, that I think it really just looks amazing.
You talked about the day-night cycle today, and I think Matt said that it wouldn't be like Earth standard 24 hours. So what is the daylight cycle in Tamriel?
What he actually was referring to on the day-night cycle is that our day-night cycle isn't synced to the real world cycle. So I think it's closer to about 1/3 of a day is the way it goes. So roughly you'll have a full day-night cycle and what would be real-time 1/3 of the day.
So it's about 8 hours around. So
yeah,
if you play for 4 hours, you have 4 hours of daylight, 4 hours of night.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, cool. For me, one of the most interesting things today you announced was the crafting system. So can you explain it to the viewers, what you're planning?
Sure. Quickly, there are 5 professions in the game. So we have the armor smith, we have the weapon smith, we have the enchanter, there's the alchemy line, and then there's the what we call provisioner, or cooking line, if you mm-hmm. want. And so with the crafting system, we wanted to make sure that players could experiment, right? So we have what we call ingredients, that are these first 2 ingredients when you want to go to make an item. And you take these first 2 ingredients, and then that says, if I want to make an axe, I know what 2 ingredients I need to make an axe. If I want to make the axe special, if I want to say make it a lightning axe or something of that nature, then I have to do what we call the additive game. And additives are very similar to what you experienced in Alchemy in Skyrim. And additives have 4 properties, and players kind of have to start to learn what the properties are of each of these different items or additives. And so once you start to figure out what would increase lightning or what would increase duration, then you can start to mix and match, and you'll get different magical weapons out of what you have in the crafting system. It's also really important that crafters kind of make the best gear, or can take the best gear and enhance it. And so that was another really big thing. We believe that crafting is absolutely integral to the game. We want to make sure that crafters feel like, hey, we're super important. And the other thing we don't want them to do is we don't want them to have to create item after item after item that's not useful to them or that they don't like to gain skill. And so we have what we call deconstruction, which is kind of how you learn the skill a little bit better, which is I take weapons that exist in the world and I look at them and I take them apart and I get some useful ingredients or additives. But what I'm also getting is I'm getting the skill to make better weapons.
So it needs you just to deconstruct one weapon to learn how it works?
Well, you'll have to deconstruct several different weapons, but you'll start to understand what the properties are. So you can't just deconstruct the same type of weapon over and over again. You have to deconstruct several different kinds. So that kind of adds to trading and exploration within the game.
And you said during the presentation that crafting wouldn't be boring, it wouldn't be a boring grind. So you said, okay, we have deconstruction on the one hand, but what makes it really interesting?
So I think one of the things that makes it interesting is that experimentation and learning what the different properties are, and learning not only what are those different properties, but how much of the additive should I add to get just the right amount. Because you can add too much and you can still get something great, but people want to find, oh, I need to add just the right amount, and there's so many different items that they can craft that experimentation is really huge for them.
Is it a fixed amount what you need for a special purpose? So maybe, the people, there's one really clever guy who finds out everything, puts it on a list, publishes on the web, and everyone is repeating the recipe or the plan he gave away.
And I think that's great. So I'll tell you outright that I want this to bring the community together, that I want crafting to be something where people are talking to one another saying, what was this recipe, what did you use? And eventually we know somebody's going to have the guide for everything there is in crafting, and that's great. Again, that's a community tool where people are working together to solve a problem. And I think that's one of those things that helps build community. And then when they solve that problem, guess what? We'll introduce a whole new slew of problems for them to kind of solve and work on. And that's the beauty of a live game, right, is that you can do that. Hopefully the community will find it compelling enough to where they want to communicate back and forth and say, oh, no, if you add just this little, just this right amount, that'll be what you want to do.
Can there be different approaches, so that maybe one guy says, okay, I like this way of the recipe and it's much better, the guy says, no, you have the wrong idea, so this way is the much better one. So what I mean is, for me as a player, the most interesting thing is when there are different opinions which are both true. Is this the case?
Right now there's one right answer, but we have talked about a system where there's two right answers, which is I think what you're suggesting to get there. And so right now there's one right answer, and we'll see how that goes, and then we'll start to build on the system and say, okay, one right answer really worked, we got the people talking, we got people agreeing on that, and now we'll introduce a new layer of this and kind of look at things like, okay, are there multiple right answers, are there multiple ways to do this?
You also said that crafted items can compete with typical loot from raids or from dungeons. Is this true to the highest level, or? Absolutely true to the highest level.
In fact, there will be certain items that you'll only be able to find in dungeons, and there'll be certain items that only crafters will be able to make. But crafters have one little leg up in the fact that they can take the stuff that you did find in dungeons and make them that much better. Certainly enchanters, if you find items in the dungeon like great swords that you're like, okay, I want this to be even better, you can add what we call an enchantment on it and make it even better.
Okay. So much for the crafting. You can oh no, one more question.
Sure.
I remember you said 800 skill points or something you can deploy on the different
yeah, so that was just kind of
an example?
it's just a way to explain the system. So and I use, say, 1,000 skill points. Now that doesn't mean there's 1,000 skill points at all. It's just to help people understand how the system would work.
But there's a certain number of skill points, so it's there's a max somewhere.
Right, and if you decide let's say to master a skill, it's 800, right? But you only have 1,000, then you have to think, okay, do I want to split 1,000 evenly down all of these different professions, or say split it evenly between 2 professions, or do I instead want to actually master one profession? And that's going to depend on how you play and your play style. A lot of people like to be, jack of all trades because they kind of want to be independent and just kind of do things on their own. But then some people want to be part of a guild and they really want to be a top contributor, so they might want to master one thing.
So it's the MacGyver guy against the specialist. So
right.
This is will give the player economy a chance. Will there be a way where you can trade those goods, or is it just hand to hand?
Well, right now we can confirm hand to hand, but we'll talk more about how players will trade later.
Then you talked about the progression of the characters today. So you have changed the UI, so it looks a bit different to the one I saw in last fall. So, but still, you have a lot of skills to learn during your leveling up, and level 50 is not the end. So, how much time, or how do you progress after level 50?
So, starting out, you have your class that you pick and your racial skill lines that we talked about. So it's kind of the way we talk about it internally is you have skill lines. And a class has 3 skill lines, a race has 1 skill line, and then as you go throughout the world, you'll pick up new skill lines. Like we talked about, the Fighters Guild has a skill line, the Mages Guild has a skill line. But then when you hit, the thing that you notice is that when you hit 50, you still have a lot of skills and abilities that you haven't, achieved or gotten. And then you're like, okay, what do I do now if I've hit 50? Exactly. Well, the good news is you keep playing the game. So if you want to, even after hitting 50, or even after you finish kind of like your alliance's zones, you can go into the other alliances and you'll play, say if I start in Daggerfall Covenant, then I can take that same character, they'll be level 50, and I can go into, say, the All-Merry Dominion. And now the All-Merry Dominion alliance zones at that point will be leveled up. They'll be leveled up to level 50 and 50 plus, right? And so they'll actually be a little bit harder than level 50. And then I'll be able to keep gaining what we call rank in those skill lines. And so then I'll be opening up more and more abilities. So I'll continue to advance long past that. If I were playing in Alliance Warfare, then I'd advance that way. If I were playing in our dungeons, kind of like our higher level, harder dungeons, then I'd advance that way. So it's really up to you kind of how you want to advance, but yeah, you'll keep advancing and kind of adding more breadth to your character the more you play.
So going to the other regions from the other factions, this is another way for PvE players to progress your character? Absolutely.
So we know that a lot of people really, the experience they enjoy is they really like the questing system, right? And they want more of it. And so, the thought was, well, okay, we have 3 different, completely different areas. They all have completely different quests, completely different content. So we should allow players to go through that, but at a higher level. And so a higher challenge level for them, and keep their same character. We love alts, and we know people like alts. So alts we had. But people really like the character that they've grown attached to that they can express. And so we thought it was super important to let them keep playing the character they've grown attached to in these kind of veteran areas.
I find this is a very clever move, and I don't know if there's any other MMO which has done the same so far. It's a very simple idea on the one hand, but never no one got this so far. Yeah, the same thing. So you stick with your main character, you stick with your guild, you stick with your friends. You don't have to change the faction and start all over again from level 1. That's very nice. During those quests you do with level 50, you don't get XP anymore. Is there anything instead, maybe gold or something you get more?
You're still getting XP, you're just not getting new levels. So we're not increasing your power, and what that means specifically is, you're going to increase your health and your magic and your stamina based off your level. So as you level up, you'll get to increase those. But you'll still get the XP, and you'll still get those soul shards. So in the world, we have soul shards lying around that add to your skill points. So if you find, or sorry, I said soul shards, sky shards rather.
Sky shards, yeah.
So if you find 3 sky shards, then that adds to a skill point. So as you're adventuring around these new areas, you'll get your new abilities that way by exploring and finding sky shards.
By the way, I don't know if you mentioned it or Matt, respec is possible. So if you find with level 50, okay, my setup is bullshit. So you can respec everything at every given time, or do you have to go to an NPC? Does it cost anything?
Yeah, we're still looking at the way you'll respec in the world and what mechanism it is, but we know people are going to feel like, I don't want to feel trapped in what I did, and so there needs to be some cost to getting the respec done. That said, hopefully people won't feel like they've made wrong decisions. Hopefully they'll feel like, okay, this is really cool. I like the way I've built out my character. And the nice thing again is by allowing them to progress. Again, you have 5 abilities at any one time, right? Those are 5 spells or what we call feats at any one time that are in your shortcut bar that you can use. And now if you get weapon swapping, then you have 5 more that you can put on there, and it's not tied to weapon, but basically weapon swapping allows you to have what is essentially another shortcut bar. But when you think about it, that's kind of the hand you're playing with out of this huge deck of abilities that you have. And so when you're going into any situation, like say I want to go into a special dungeon, you're kind of saying these are the abilities I want to put in my shortcut bar because these are the things I'm going to use and these are the weapons I'm going to use. So it's really, even though you can respec, hopefully you've developed enough of a breadth in your character, even in your first time through, that you're like, okay, I've got this. I can pick whatever I want out of the things I've gotten that I feel really good about.
Yeah, but in theory, you can master every skill there is if you invest enough time in the game.
Absolutely, in theory, until we add more skill lines.
Okay. Talking about the other regions, one of you mentioned that there will be a story twist, which explains why you can play for Daggerfall Covenant when you marry a guy. So, can you give us a teaser or a hint what this story twist will be?
Sure, I think the hint is maybe that there's a lesson in seeing the world through your enemy's eyes.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Talking about the guilds, I think, okay, everyone knew the guilds would come, but I think you didn't tell a lot of details, or mentioned a lot of details. Today, this has changed. We have the Mages Guild, we have the Fighters Guild, and they have a totally different approach to the world. So can you explain the approach?
Sure. The Fighters Guild is really about kind of taking on this threat. With the different alliances, fighting amongst themselves, there has to be somebody that's stepping forward and taking on Moloch Ball and the Daedric problem, and the Dark Anchors coming from Cold Harbor. And so the Fighters Guild is all about taking that on. The Mages Guild, on the other hand, slightly different tack. They're more interested in reclaiming the lost lore. They're worried that this war that's taking place is scattering the lore to the 4 winds, and so they've tasked the player to go find books in the world. And so the way you gain rank in the Fighters Guild is by killing Daedra and by defeating Dark Anchors. And the way you gain rank within the Mages Guild is by going out and finding lore books in the world. And the nice thing is that when you find books that the mages want, you'll be able to go into this collection and read the books at any time.
Oh, so finding the books means you interact with the books and open it up, and so this is you rank up in a way.
Yeah.
Automatically, or?
Yes, absolutely. When you find the book, that gets added into your lore library, and then you have more rank with the Mages Guild. And then the nice thing is we've set it up to where there's volumes, right? And so, or a collection. And so once you complete one collection, you'll get a little extra rank with the Mages Guild. So there's several different collections that you can have. So for instance, there's a Necromancy collection. There might be a Zone collection, which is, hey, it's about Glenumbra. And that's, so you're actually filling in all the books for this collection, and then ding, you get even more rank when you do that.
So when can you join the guilds in the game? At what point? Level 10, 15, 20?
You can join the guild at any time you make it to a guild location headquarters. So for instance, today, when you guys were playing, you started out in Stros Mackay and then you went to Betnik, and shortly thereafter is Daggerfall. Right? And if you'd looked in Daggerfall, there's a Mages Guild, and there's a representative there, and you can just walk up to the representative and say, hey, I want to be a part of the Mages Guild, and they're like, great. Let's get you in, and if you've already found books before you join the Mages Guild, they'll say, hey, that's okay, we like those books, we'll give you credit for it.
Okay, so there in every big city a representative with a guild house, or is there sometimes not only an NPC standing around on the marketplace?
Most of the time, you'll have a Fighter's Guild and a Mage's Guild building in the bigger cities.
Okay, and you can go in and explore and talk to the people there.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What can you do in those guild houses?
Well, partly one of the things that you'll be able to do that I think is pretty cool is they'll have their own vendors, but the part I really like is that the more rank you gain, that's the quest line that you have for them. So they have their own unique quest lines, just like they do in Skyrim or Oblivion, and then you'll go in and you'll go through those quest lines. So once you start achieving higher and higher ranks, they're like, okay, a new quest is open up for you. We trust you enough to go to this next level of quest. And those, I think those quest lines are fantastic. Definitely some of the best stuff I've played in the game. I really like it. So a lot to look forward to there.